Support for Elwood City Limits is brought to you by Facebook,
Facebook.com/Elwood City Limits,
Twitter,
@ECL Podcast,
Tumblr,
ElwoodCityLimits.tumblr.com,
and Gmail.
ElwoodCityLimits@gmail.com.
And from listeners like you. Thank you.
And my free time.
Got to get that in there. Well, Lucas, I know that we've got a range of ages who listen to the podcast here, but I do want to say for any of our younger listeners, this is a very important time of the year because very soon school is going to be back in.
Ooh, no more teachers, no more books. Or wait a minute, I got that mixed up. See, it's been so long since I've had to worry about such a thing that I didn't even remember any limericks or rhymes to mark the occasion. All I could come up with was a summer's beginning.
Yeah,
I'm so far removed from the idea of going back to school. Though I'll tell you what, every time, especially this week, here where we live, the seasons kind of come at you out of nowhere. Like it was summer, and then all of a sudden it got dewy and cold in the mornings, and I was like, oh yeah, it's fall now. Summer's over. And that feeling always makes me feel like I'm perpetually going back to school.
Yeah, now it's starting to get into the lower 20 degrees Celsius over here, and we'll be preparing for fall before you know it. Next week, I know, or maybe even already, some of our younger listeners or some of our listeners in university are getting ready to go back as well. So we're going to provide you with a little bit of a nice little fade into the school year with a look at, another episode of Arthur here on Elwood City Limits. Thanks for joining us once again. My name's Will Young. Lucas Mancini with me once again.
Hello.
Got a couple of Tumblr asks before we get into the episode today. One of which is gonna call upon a little bit more of your expertise, Lucas.
Okay, I'm excited to hear this.
Let's go a little bit general. So last week, when it was still in the news, we were talking about the eclipse, the 2017 summer eclipse. This ask comes from Norbert Jr. What are your top?
Wait a minute. Like the Eddie Murphy movie? Or is no, that's Norbit. I'm sorry. Norbit. He probably gets that all the time, so I apologize. Continue.
No, just the normal name, Norbert. Norbert asks, what are your top 3 Arthur characters most likely to stare at the eclipse? For Norbert, it would be number 1, Binky, number 2, Mr. Haney, and number 3, Buster.
Mr. Haney would stare at the eclipse, but it wouldn't be on purpose. It'd be like on accident. Like he'd be opening his front door and he's like, another beautiful day. And then he goes, like his eyes get burned out. I definitely think Binky's a solid number 1. I think, what's the tough customer's name that you really like with the hat? Is it Rattles?
Yeah.
He would, like, stare at the eclipse to prove how tough he was, and then, like, get his just desserts, like, oh, I'm so cool, I'll stare at the eclipse. And I guess number 3, I don't know, Buster might, but I feel like he would think the eclipse is some sort of alien, like, he'd be like those flat earth people that think the eclipse is all a part of the great hologram or whatever that the government's trying to trick us with. So he wouldn't even like care to stare at it. I'm trying to think who would be my number 3. Maybe what's Fern's older sister or Prunella?
Rubella.
Rubella would do it for some sort of pagan ritual.
All right, not a bad couple choices. I do think Mr. Haney is a strong one, so I think that would be in there too. Okay, here's the ask that calls upon a little bit more of your expertise. This is from an anonymous Tumblr user. Which Arthur character would most likely be a fan of XXX Tentacion? They say, I honestly think the answer might be Arthur. Now, I don't know too much about this fellow. In fact, I asked you a couple months ago off of the show kind of what his deal was, and you told me that not too many positive things.
No, but I kind of think his whole thing is a little bit corny, but it's definitely not like his. audience is totally not me. Like, it's probably for an age range a little bit younger, and probably a little bit more, I don't know, someone who's... I feel like if you're way into Hobson, you'd be way into XXX Tentacion. He's like a harder Hobson in terms of subject matter. I would say probably, like, The Brain, maybe. Like, I bet The Brain, like, strikes me as he's either listening to, like, math rock, or he's listening into, like, super technical death metal, or, like, XXX. He'd be like, guys, like... XXS is actually, like, much more lyrical and deep than all the other rappers. You wouldn't catch me listening to that Lil Boozy or anybody like that, because he's actually got something to say. Like, I feel like The Brain would be the one to do it. I get where the Arthur idea comes from, maybe because Arthur's got a darkness in his heart with all that anxiety and how he's always worried about what everybody else thinks, and I can see a misfit like that really, like, feeling X's message, but I don't know. The better question is, which Arthur character is most likely to listen to Lil Uzi Vert? And that one really has me puzzled.
Gotta be Buster, right?
Buster, I could see, but I don't know. Yeah, I guess, like, Buster's pretty irreverent, and so is Lil Uzi Vert. I really have no idea. Like, I feel like if we had to assign, like, each Arthur character a rapper, like, I don't know. For some reason...
Sorry.
Sorry. For some reason, Arthur's got, like, a Kyle vibe to me. Like, I feel like Kyle is the Arthur of rappers, and then Buster would be, like, I don't know.
Lil Yachty?
Buster would be either Lil Yachty or Ugly God. I feel like Ugly God is the Buster of the rap game.
Okay. You would probably... I would have to probably hand this over to you. I only know a lot of these guys mostly by name, not so much by their material, but I trust your opinion on this. I will say that Brain does kind of strike me as, if not an X fan, then a fan of, like you said, Hobson, just because of the moralizing and the air of snobbery that can come of Hobson. Which leads us actually into our first episode. Thanks for the Tumblr asks there, but let's get into it. So today we're talking about Water and the Brain, followed by Arthur the Unfunny. So the first episode, it's all about Brain, but the episode starts, once again, from the perspective of Arthur.
Man, these opening segments, like, this one had me I was more confused for the first half of the episode, being like, what was that opening? That I think I've ever been before. Like, this had, until the very end, almost nothing to do with the episode. It was really confusing and kind of bizarre. It's like a Black Mirror episode or something, like a little Black Mirror episode at the start of this Arthur.
A little bit. I kind of see where you're coming from, and I tell you, I wrote down several sentences here in my notes that just end with a question mark and an exclamation mark. So basically the setup is that Arthur is wondering if there would be less fighting in the world or just less turmoil if everybody was just like him. And this leads to a couple of cutaways where it would, in the world where everyone is Arthur, no one would call each other Four Eyes, like they would compliment each other's glasses.
The way you said that was like John Lennon, like, imagine a world where everyone's Arthur, no one would call each other Four Eyes.
If only he were still alive today, we could get something like that. His birthday, Arthur's birthday, would be a national holiday, and there's like a parade going on with everybody, with all of the Arthurs lined up to hail, I guess, Arthur Prime, who is in like a crown on a parade float, which led to my first question: who is Arthur Prime in this universe? How can they tell?
Maybe it's like that Rick and Morty episode where Rick was dating that whole planet, like they all had a shared collective consciousness.
Yeah.
I didn't even really consider, though, just the general structure of this Arthur society. I guess in a world where everyone's Arthur, we have no need for such things.
It just got me wondering of, like, how do they decide which Arthur to celebrate, and what happens when one of the Arthurs doesn't like the fact that he's not being celebrated. And then kind of getting an idea of how Arthur sees himself. He says everybody would be super nice, even the bank robbers. And there's a little aside.
Oh, this is so funny.
where Arthur with like a toque comes in and he's just like, "Good morning, everybody. Would you be so kind as to give me all your money?" And then everybody politely hands him money in a sack.
Yeah, you hear someone say off screen. One of the Arthurs goes, "Of course,
Certainly, sir."
yeah, certainly, sir. It's the bank's money, not mine. Ha ha.
Yeah. So first of all, worth noting that Arthur's biggest trait, at least to himself, is that he's super nice. So he really is kind of the main character. He really is the point of entry character in that sense. Another question is, why would there be bank robbers in this utopia of Arthur's? Why would there still be crime in this Arthur only world?
It's like I keep just making references off the top, but this is just such a weird like sci-fi concept. I can't help it. But it's like in Demolition Man, where like if all it takes is one Arthur to realize what crime is, and the other Arthurs aren't prepared to handle it.
Murder, death, kill. Murder, death, kill.
Arthur's like, "Where's all the laser guns? Ain't this the future?"
Wesley Snipes comes in like the Arthur glasses, just like, "Sir, what is your boggle?" "My boggle." That's a great movie.
That movie is so good.
Yeah, check out Demolition Man if you haven't. As the bank robber leaves the bank, like he holds open the door for somebody for an Arthur, and then they have a baby who is also just a small version of Arthur with the glasses and everything. Why is there a baby Arthur, and how does that work?
This is where this just goes to, like, one of the Arthur writers saw Being John Malkovich, and they had the bright idea of, like, ooh, what if we had a little thing where everybody was Arthur, even this baby?
And then finally, Arthur says, it would be great if there were a million me's, but if there
here
were
comes the Black Mirror twist.
Yeah, if there were a million me's, and then there's a stampede of Arthur's sister DW, and he just says there'd be a million DWs.
Oh,
and then my final question is, why? Why would there be a million DWs?
Because it couldn't be a utopian society, Will. It had to have a Black Mirror twist where actually everything's terrible because there's a million DWs.
Even in Arthur's imagination, he has an inferiority complex. Nothing can go absolutely right, even in his wildest dreams. Anyway, that was really odd, and when you think about it, very tangential to what this episode actually is about.
Because from there, we get an episode about the brain?
I mean, they tie back into it later, but yeah, anyway, we'll get there. The actual episode starts with them playing Frisbee in the park. It's Arthur, Binky, Francine, and the Brain, and Muffy pulls up in her limousine and invites them all to her party at Waterworld. Kevin Costner not included. I had to. It's called Waterworld. What'd you expect me to think of? It's, you know, the next thing after you say Waterworld is Dennis Hopper fighting the Mariner or whatever his name was.
Will, don't you remember what Brain said? He doesn't have gills.
So they are very excited about going to Waterworld. Binky is excited for a new ride that looks like a lawsuit that's just waiting to happen. The Slam Dunk.
Oh my god. Binky says it's 25 miles long, and like doing some quick mental math, and you know me, I'm the math guy. I feel like the velocity, like the speed over velocity alone would just kill somebody. But then we see like the end of the ride, and after like going 25 miles, the loose compartments, like the actual floats that the riders are riding in, just splash into the water with them. So they're not even being held to a track or anything. They're just kind of floating in the water next to the people at the end of the ride. It's really nuts.
Yeah, like you can see when the people in like this ad or whatever, like one of them is like hanging out of the log flume, like holding on by their hands, and the end is like a sheer vertical drop into water. And then their log flume, it's not like you know, when you go on Splash Mountain at Disney or something, it's not, you know, like a car that just looks like a log. It's a log and it like shatters in the water. It's so dangerous.
And you see all the other ones floating next to it, so it's not like it's on a track and it just like goes onto the ride again like every other ride in existence. The mechanics of this ride don't make much sense, let alone how it was able to be owned and operated, like you said, without a class action lawsuit.
Hey, it's at their own risk. So everybody's very excited. It's going to be a fun birthday, but the brain actually turns it down. And his reason for doing so is that essentially he says something along the lines of that amusement parks are for little kids, and he doesn't care to go. Which, right away, before we even understand at all what Brain's deal is, he could have just said he was busy. That was pretty rude to just be like, "No, amusement parks are for babies. I don't want to go do that."
Brain is at his most like Sheldon from The Big Bang Theory in this episode. Like they literally just write him like young CBS's young Sheldon, where it's just like people will ask Brain something. It reminds me. This whole episode reminded me of this tweet I saw about like young Sheldon, where it was like young Sheldon's mom goes, "Pass me the salt, honey," and he's like, "Ooh, don't you mean sodium, mother?" And then it's like laugh track. That's essentially like the exact way Brain's character's written this whole episode. Is someone will say something and then Brain will over-explain it with big science words. And then we get to some actual content. But it happens like 5 times, including this time when he tries to explain that it's for babies. He uses some big old Neil deGrasse Tyson science words to get that point across.
I was going to say Neil deGrasse Tyson, too. That's, unfortunately, when I hear of somebody using big words to be kind of a killjoy. But on their way back home, like Brain is left at this point, or just on their way, let's say on their way back home. Everybody's talking about times when the Brain has been like kind of a jerk to them, and I did like how everybody's negative memories of Brain conveniently involve him being near the water, but everybody just straight jumps to the conclusion that he hates me, or he hates all girls, or he hates all of us.
This was like a really fun little segment, especially the way they frame it. So we get a shot from Buffy, and she like went yachting with the Brain, and then we get like, if you know how people take screenshots from The Simpsons and they remake films with them, like on Twitter, there'll be like 4 screenshots from The Simpsons. If you were if you were going to make one for Arthur and Dunkirk, this would be prime material, because literally like Brain's in like I don't know the official boating term, but he's in like whatever, for lack of a better term, the basement of the yacht, and it looks like a shot for shot remake of that one scene in Dunkirk.
Yeah, he's below deck.
Yeah, below deck, yeah.
Yeah, and then Mr. Crosswire's like, "You can't escape this, son."
We're going back to Dunkirk. Oh, that's funny.
Dunkirk, also a great movie. Check it out if you haven't yet. And then I had, again, a lot of questions in this episode. Why did Brain even agree to go on a boat if, as we find out, he hates the water? Why didn't he just not go? Because it just seems to be Muffy and the Brain.
That's true. Those are 2 characters we don't really see interacting one-on-one that often. I didn't think about it that much. I was too busy thinking about Dunkirk.
Big Christopher Nolan fan is our Lucas.
It's true.
Brain is like tying a knot down below deck as Muffy's just like, "Oh, there's a dolphin out here," and Brain's like, "Nah, that's again, big deGrasse Tyson's his way out of it." The other examples are Francine, who had bobbing for apples at her Halloween party, and Brain just kind of refused to do it. And then the last one was Binky, who recounted a time when he and the Brain were trying to catch frogs, and then Brain just kind of... But
before Binky tells his story, he has what might be my favorite line of the episode. It's like something out of an adult sitcom. It's a very odd line, but Binky goes, very matter-of-factly, he goes, "He doesn't hate girls. He just hates all of us."
Really painted as a misanthrope, and then Brain's about to grab a frog, but then he gets scared of the water, and then he's just like, "Chasing frogs is a cruel and inhumane sport." And he uses all of these dodges to get away from what the real problem is. Like, he's just like, "Nah, there's a lot of germs in that water, so I'm not going to bob for apples," or like, "Chasing frogs is inhumane." It really paints Brain as like a real wet blanket. He doesn't seem to be very much fun.
Which is why all of his friends conclude that it's not even just a hatred of them. They just think Brain's a snob.
Oh, he's a loony left-wing snob. He's one of these intellectuals trying to tell us how he's so much better than us.
That's right. All it's missing is like Brain flipping off Alex Jones on Periscope, and Alex Jones going, "You're just an intellectual. You're not an intellectual."
Yeah, so exactly. That's the word, is that even though Arthur is trying not to believe it, all of his friends think that that Brain is just a snob. In fact, we get a little bit of a montage here of Brain being shunned by the group. There's a great one where he like says hi to Binky, who's on his bicycle.
Oh my
and
god,
he's just
Binky is like quickly becoming. I remember in the early seasons we realized that Binky was one of the more fleshed out Arthur characters, and now in season 2 I'm realizing Binky is one of the most especially in Buster's absence, Binky is the most consistently funny Arthur character. Like in this episode alone, he was hilarious.
It's really true. It's a great line read here where Binky's just like, "The Brain is saying hello to me. I'm so honored. Thank you, Mr. Brain. Thank you." Like really cutting him down.
Yeah.
And Arthur's kind of being shamed away from talking to him as well, just because they are very much against giving Brain the time of day at all. We get this kind of weird aside that eventually leads Arthur to the discovery of what Brain's problem is. So Arthur's in his room and DW runs in because she's running away from Arthur's dad, who's trying to give her a bath, which seemed kind of out of nowhere. Like, I just have a bit of a hard time believing DW's afraid of taking a bath. Since
I don't think it's afraid. I remember when I was a little kid, I just didn't want to do it. Like, right. I took no joy in taking a bath, and much like, I think it's a pretty common thing for kids to, like, hide or avoid their parents when it's bath time. That it's just like, I don't know why. I don't really like baths these days, but I remember especially as a kid, I was like, ooh, I don't want to have a bath. I gotta hide so my parents don't force me to have one.
I guess I see what you're saying. It just seemed a little convenient for what they were trying to get across here. So DW hides under Arthur's bed. Arthur points her out. DW with a funny line here. She just yells after him, "Thanks, Eggs Benedict Arnold."
Which I thought was funny as well. I was surprised that she would even though she got the term wrong, Benedict Arnold. I guess that's probably something in American schools they learn at an earlier age than here in Canada. You don't hear people call each other Benedict Arnolds that often.
Yeah, this is definitely one of the first places where I would have heard it, and the reference when I was little went right over my head. And then Arthur kind of I can't remember exactly, or maybe I don't even know in the first place how he connects the dots, but he's just like, it's like people can be afraid of the funniest things. Hey, wait, you don't think that the Brain... Wait a minute. And
yeah,
like, okay.
It was kind of weird. Arthur doesn't usually break the fourth wall mid-episode. It's usually a bookend kind of thing. Like, either he's introducing the episode in the preview. Of course, he didn't do it this episode because we got that insane preview instead. Insane intro, rather. So it was kind of jarring to have him break the fourth wall mid-episode, look in the camera Jim of The Office style, and be like, "What do you think? Did Brain... Oh!"
And the next day, Arthur is about to see the Brain, but then he actually sees Binky behind a bush, and he's getting ready to soak Brain with some water balloons. And Arthur stops him in time and informs Binky that the Brain is actually just afraid of water, which is why he's been a bit of a snob to them.
Right before that we just get a quick moment, where Arthur corners the Brain about this, and Brain won't admit it. Like, he's all cagey about, like, "Oh, I can't tell you the reason," and then Arthur's like, "Well, I think you're afraid of water," or he really challenges him on it or something, and then Brain goes, "I have to go, my mom's calling me," and he runs out of the room, and Arthur goes, "But this is your house."
Yeah, that's right. Sorry, I forgot about that. Yeah, that was a good one. It's really Brain just really getting his back against the wall, running out of excuses. And you're right. The Binky scene is right after that, where he's about to be ambushed with water balloons. Arthur stops Binky, and at this point, pretty much knows what it is, and Brain confirms solemnly that he is afraid of water. And again, Binky being very funny here, like he turns away, like he's laughing at him, which was what Brain was afraid of. He doesn't want people to know because he'd just be the laughing stock. But then it turns out Binky is like sobbing and like drops the water balloons. He's just like, "I can't believe I was so insensitive."
Yeah, again, Binky, the real MVP.
Yeah, and again, kind of true to his character of like, yeah, he can be a bully sometimes, but he also has a soft heart, and he didn't mean to bully Brain for his or having a phobia of the water. Although it is a great turnaround here. It's just like, all this time you were just afraid of the water. What a dumb thing to be afraid of.
It's true. He's still not going to let him off the hook fully.
Yeah. So this is where the episode kind of goes from everyone against Brain versus now Binky and Arthur are going to try and break Brain of his phobia. And so Binky, not exactly the person I would want to really coach me through something, tries immersion therapy. He tries just to cure Brain of it once and for all. They're at like the beach or something on like a what do you call that? Not a boardwalk, but like a pier, basically.
Yeah.
And they're just looking at the water, and Binky just goes, "Jump!"
You know, you know what though? Some parents I've read, that's how they get their kids to swim, is they just throw them in the pool, and apparently, like, you're supposed to fight or flight instinct naturally know how to swim. I'm not sure how well that's worked out or how common that is, but some people subscribe to the Binky method of swimming lessons.
I wouldn't want to try it out for myself. Mine was a bit more gradual than that, and I'm a pretty strong swimmer.
That's right, swimming level 11 or something crazy, weren't you?
Oh yeah, swimming level 12. That's
swimming
as high
level
as
12. Excuse me.
That's as high as it goes, baby.
I gave up after 7.
Oh, then you're an intermediate swimmer. You're not
That's
advanced, not an advanced swimmer like your boy. So the next thing they do is Arthur tries a bit something more gradual. They go to the community pool, and Brain's got like his water wings and a life preserver around his stomach, and they just try to do one step at a time. But he gets spooked. He gets spooked like a horse when Binky mentions that Muffy's party will be over by the time we get him up to his neck, and Brain has no plans to go that far into the water.
Brain probably wouldn't actually like the movie Dunkirk much, now that I think about it. I could see him walking out of the theater at some moments in that, if getting water up to his neck is an issue.
Dude, I was getting close myself, and I saw it in 2D. I didn't even see it in IMAX. That's intense, especially when it comes to some of the scenes involving water.
And you're level 12, so if it spooked you, Brain would be really running for the exit.
Big time. The next thing they try is that they go to the aquarium, and Arthur tries a little bit of visualization therapy, where they go to the fish tank. It is the aquarium, and asks Brain to imagine himself being underwater. And
Mickey is really apprehensive about going to the aquarium. He says it's just filled with fish and dumb facts, which leads me to believe that Mickey'd probably be a big fake news guy. You know, he's not a fan of those dumb facts.
Yeah. It actually reminds me that I'm going to be going to an aquarium very soon. I'll be heading to Toronto this weekend. Ooh. And checking out the Toronto Aquarium.
I'm a big fan of aquariums. When I went to Boston, I checked out the Boston Aquarium, saw some belugas. It's a fun time.
Now that I think about it, I don't think I've been to too many aquariums in my life, so this will be the chance to go to a dedicated one. It's pretty exciting. Anyway, Brain visualizes himself underwater and doesn't seem to be afraid of it, but also he is ever the logical person, so he has to hold his breath while he's imagining himself underwater, because of course he wouldn't be able to breathe under there. So he runs out of the aquarium and to catch his breath, and it seems like that didn't work either. Arthur and Binky kind of get into a bit of an argument about whose therapy worked better, and Brain says, it's okay. There are worse things a kid could be afraid of, like air.
True.
Or school.
I don't know if that's worse, but...
Yeah, but I still believe a kid being afraid of school over being afraid of air.
That's true.
So Brain, as he's kind of thinking of things he could be afraid of, almost backs into the pretty shallow-looking water fountain. And he does this like comedy stage pratfall of just like, whoa!
Yeah, I got flashbacks to DW on the balance beam for a full 15 minutes of
Yeah, that's a good point. It really is like oh no, I'm going to fall. But they catch him in time, and
won't somebody catch me?
And Brain was pretty scared, and Arthur and Binky admit that they were scared of him falling in too. And then this is actually where the episode begins to wrap up. We cut to Muffy's birthday at Waterworld. They're going down the slam dunk, which seems to be a little bit less dangerous than maybe it was in Binky's imagination. Binky and Francine get into a little bit of an argument about, just because he's afraid of the water doesn't mean he isn't our friend, Francine. And then Francine's like, oh, yeah? Well, I wasn't the one who tried to make him like swimming. And then Arthur kind of comes in and just like, you're both right. And also, it'd be boring if everyone was the same, which I guess brings us back to the cold open. It's a weird way to tie it all together, you know?
Yeah, and I think it's trying to hit home. I don't want to get too ahead of ourselves with the reviews of this episode, but I think this episode kind of makes you think the moral is going to be facing your fears and kind of turns that on its head at the end. And the moral, I guess, is that sometimes it's okay to be different. It just really does that in a really roundabout way.
We of course we get the classic tried and true punchline here of Muffy saying, I hate snobby people. By the way, Arthur, where did you get that swimsuit? It's so tacky. And the episode ends with them running to their chair where Brain is actually the towel guard, and Binky says, I'm glad that he doesn't like to swim, because if he did, the towels would be as wet as we are. And Brain kind of in his he kind of looked like he might, speaking of today's rap scene, he looks like he might fit in with being a member of Migos, with this, like, he's got bucket hat, he's got shades, he's got like his Hawaiian, it's like Hawaiian Brain over here, being the towel guard. Almost like being the towel guard was an option from the very beginning, so why did we make a big to-do out of it?
I mean, if you really want to go down that line of questioning, someone says the line that if Brain wasn't here, the towels would be as wet as us. I think it's Binky.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, like, wouldn't you have a place to put them?
Why? I guess someone else would steal the towels unless they brought the towels with them.
To be honest with you, I don't care to think about it too much longer anymore.
What's that down there? Is that the script? Is that the script for the episode? Why did DW not want to take a bath? Oh, is that the script? Do you see the script over there?
Email me if you want a pizza roll. Sorry, I was really trying to put that together. I was like, what the hell's the line? I'm like, okay.
Yeah. I was like, what reference is he gonna make? I was on pins and needles.
All right, that's Water and the Brain. No.
Comment on this web zone if you want a pizza roll.
10 minutes left.
Anyway.
So there it is, Water in the Brain. No word from us kids this week, so we move on to the second one, and it's Arthur the Unfunny, which, now that you mentioned kind of what the moral might be at the end of the last episode, this one kind of follows a similar path, but we will definitely get to that in a little bit. This one, cold open, is once again Arthur, except this time it's a little bit different. So Arthur comes out on a stage, and he's got a microphone, and he's getting ready to tell a joke.
It's very Seinfeld, like with the spotlight and everything.
Yeah, really. It's like
very Seinfeld derivative.
It's if Arthur was out there in the middle of like a Hot 20 or something, then it would be more Seinfeld. This is him like getting out onto the stage, and the whole point is that it's like a minute of him trying to tell a joke and just bombing like crazy. And it's a really convoluted joke. There's a lot of elements to it. It's like something about a monkey and a banana and apples that are actually oranges, and it's just a really long setup to get to the tried and true orange you glad I didn't say banana punchline.
Something I like, and this comes up a couple times in this episode, something I'll always like in kids shows is when you only get to hear the punchline of the joke and all the characters start laughing. Mm-hmm. That's just something that's always been funny to me. I think I've talked about this before, how in Recess there was a running joke where someone would always say, "That's no kindergartner, that's my wife," and then everybody would start laughing, and we never knew what the setup for that joke was, just that was the punchline. So I appreciated whenever something like this happened in this episode, where it's like this, like, oh my goodness, you couldn't even conceive what this joke was.
Well, actually, I have a little bit of a response to that once we get into one of those jokes. And it's so this cold open is a very rare instance of character building where it's like Arthur doesn't really have comedic chops. And, in the end, he ruins the punchline and just walks off the stage, and that's the end of the cold open. The episode doesn't quite start off with a bang, but I did like this. It's Arthur trying to sharpen his pencil but while he's in his room, but it gets a bunch of, colored gunk all over it, and he's just like, Mom, DW's been using my sharpener to sharpen her crayons again. And DW is really funny here. It's just like... It's like, it did not, and it's just like, well, then how come there's all this gunk in here? She just pauses for a second. Pal did it!
And then this is it's like Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney. Arthur pulls an objection, and his rock-solid defense of Pal is that how could Pal do it? He doesn't have any thumbs. Not to mention that he's a dog or anything, just that he doesn't have any thumbs.
Hold it!
Yeah.
By the way, anybody who's talented with Photoshop, I'm not saying that you have to Photoshop Arthur's head onto Phoenix Wright and DW's onto Miles Edgeworth, but I'm not saying it. And then DW with a great "gotta go" and just runs away. So the whole idea we start here because the narrative of the episode is that it's based around a letter that Arthur is writing to Buster, who is off on his travels with his dad. So,
which is a really cool framing device, by the way. I really like that aspect of this episode, how it's all framed as a letter from Arthur to Buster. I'm enjoying Buster's role as Arthur's friend abroad that's kind of detached from all the goings-on, and I think it's really giving some of the other characters good room to breathe. So overall, so far, I'm happy with Buster's move as a character away from Elwood City.
Yeah, despite our thoughts on it or whatever they may be, I mean, the chance of getting an episode about the brain was certainly would have been less with Buster in the main rotation. But you're right; it is an interesting way to kind of stretch the story, the storytelling methods of Arthur. So good point there. So what's going on right now is that the Elwood City Library is looking to do some fundraising. And they've already helped it out a bunch, like Mr. Crosswire's raffled off a car, Mrs. McGrady did a bake sale, and now Muffy wants to do a carnival in her backyard and is looking...
I wrote down, you'll get a kick out of this, Will, because
okay.
we both used to work, we both worked at radio stations at different times. Arthur's essentially writing a list to Buster of all the things a radio station write about in their community events section. Raffling up a car, there's going to be a carnival...
Washer toss.
I wonder, do Americans have washer toss?
Oh, good question. Or do any of our international listeners know about washer toss? I actually think that was something that my girlfriend, or excuse me, my fiance, I got to get used to saying that, works with some people who have immigrated to Canada, and they weren't aware what washer toss was, so she got to explain to them what that is. It's very popular here over in our part of Canada, but maybe not where you live. I actually got to play it for the first time recently, and I'm not a prodigy at it or anything, but it's a lot of fun.
Is it just horseshoes, Will? Is it just kind of horseshoes?
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't tell you which came first, the washer or the shoe, but it's basically kind of horseshoes. Although the scoring system is a little bit more intricate, but yeah, it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. Yeah. All we need is a corn boil here, and we'd have a perfect community event here for Elwood City. Yeah. So Muffy wants to help by putting a carnival in her backyard, and she wants to do a big main show with all of her friends, but she's not sure exactly what kind of a show to put on. Brain here suggests that they have a ride that is a particle accelerator so that people can see the inner parts of atoms or particles. And he actually gives a name drop here to Simon Vandermeer. And I made sure to look up Simon Vandermeer, who was a particle physicist who discovered the W and Z particles and won the Nobel Prize in Physics.
Ooh.
So a little bit of a and hey, funny line here from Brain. Francine just saying, that's not possible. You can't do that. And Brain says she didn't say it had to be possible. She just said the best thing.
Touche.
So Arthur is they're trying to figure out something, and Arthur's like, I wish Buster was here. Then he would just say, let's all be clowns or something, and then but then everybody's just like, that's a great idea. Let's all put on a show as clowns. And it's kind of Arthur projecting what would be Buster's idea. You can tell how friendship goals Arthur and Buster here. They can think like each other on the fly. So everybody kind of not really auditions, but finds like an aspect of clowning that they could do. And Arthur tries his hand at humor, but is not exactly successful. So we get one of those situations where you hear the end of the joke, but we never get to hear the setup, so we're not exactly sure where Arthur bungled the punchline. But everybody just kind of looks at him, just like, "Oh yeah, we get it."
So earlier you gave us a little bit of a tease, whether or not this was a real joke or not, or it seems like you had some other information concerning this joke. Did you look up what the setup is?
I sure did.
Ooh.
So I went to the emporium of this type of humor, r/dad jokes.
Oh
So,
man.
All right, so I'm gonna tell you, audience and Lucas, I'm gonna tell you this joke, and let's see if it lands. Let's see if I'm an Arthur or a Buster. Okay. So a man who doesn't hear well went into a shoemaker shop and asked the shoemaker, "What are shoes made of?" The shoemaker replies offhandedly, "Hide." The man goes, "What?" The shoemaker repeats, "Hide." The man goes, "What?" The shoemaker firmly says, "Hide." The man says, "What?" The shoemaker yells, "Hide! Hide! The cow's outside!" And the man says, "I don't care. I'm not afraid of any cow." Eh? Eh? Oh, jeez. Oh. Where did I lose you? Was it the delivery or was it the joke?
Your delivery was fine. It's just...
Oh, jeez.
I think I gotta go lie down. Oh, man.
Sounds like I actively made your day worse. Yeah, it's...
Now I'm wondering what Arthur... Because, like, the kids were kind of messing... Like, not only did Arthur say that was a joke Buster told him and he thought it was funny, but Arthur's dad at some point's like, "It's a really funny joke."
Yeah, like, later on, he's just like... It's like, I told him that one. And then I'm like, really? It's a very funny joke, but of course Arthur's dad's opinion is already ruined because he is the dad in question. In fact, I'm surprised that's not where he got it from. And we run into Arthur's problem here, which I actually relate with quite a bit. Francine kind of says, maybe you're just not meant to be funny. And he's just like, what are you talking about? I make Buster laugh all the time. And we have this like montage of Arthur and Buster laughing to kill themselves. In fact, Arthur once made him laugh so hard he spit a milkshake through his nose. But it's kind of something that you learn as you go along. It's just like, just because you are funny to your close friends doesn't mean that you're funny full stop, like you're comedian funny.
I totally agree. Like, and that's an important lesson that some people need to learn in their lives. Even myself. Sometimes your inside jokes, it just doesn't carry over to everybody else. I'll also say I love how defensive Arthur gets at this moment where he's I think it's Francine who pontificates maybe they were just being polite and Buster wasn't genuinely laughing at Arthur's jokes, and then Arthur says he had that shake coming out of his nose. Shake doesn't come out of your nose if you're just being polite.
No, it's a good point, and it's like you say, it's kind of a lesson that is a bit hard to learn. In fact, is a little bit over the head of maybe the kids' audience, which is why I found myself relating with it too. It's just like, I am very funny when I'm with my friends, but in terms of being like a capital C comedian, I think I would probably flounder. So I found that part very interesting. I like this here. Later on, Arthur goes to his mother and just like, "Mom, can I ask you a question? Am I funny?" And Mom totally does an awesome, like, presses X for this QuickTime event and just goes, "There's nothing funny about how you haven't practiced the piano all week," and just dodges out of the way.
Did you see what was on his mom's computer?
No, I didn't.
It was the file system. Looks like some Windows 98 mess. And it said, work, games, files, and menu.
Man, when life was so simple. That sounds almost like Windows 3.1.
That's basically you could basically fit everything in existence into those 4 categories.
Yeah.
It's either work, or it's games, or it's files, or menu.
Yeah. If only life were so simple. So Arthur goes to practice the piano, and while he's there, Kate and DW are playing nearby, and like when Arthur does a little bit of practicing, he starts to do a little bit of riffing to kind of just make Kate laugh. Like he starts making funny faces and playing funny notes, and we kind of get a hint here of where Arthur's comedic talent lies. And great line here from DW. Kate thinks you're funny, Arthur, and I do too. Your face is always hilarious.
Oh, what a burn from DW.
And the Arthur response is one I use a lot. Just har har har. So they decide to give him a little bit of his friends, I should say, try to give him lessons in being funny. Sue Ellen tries to teach him how to juggle. That doesn't go over so well. The Brain has like a joke book of science-related jokes, which she tries to teach Arthur, but he didn't really understand them. I like the reaction from when Brain's trying to explain the joke of just like, don't you get it? Helium is a noble gas. And Arthur's like, oh, what? And then finally we get one where Binky's teaching him how to make faces. And my God, Binky, he's got like the Gene Simmons tongue on him. It's like he like licks his own face, and it's literally his tongue goes up over his eyes to like his forehead.
Binky's like the living embodiment of the Mario 64 menu where you could pull Mario's face around.
Yeah, just. But I mean, Binky being able to look at it's like he's got a pancake instead of a tongue. It's crazy. Arthur even gets professional clowning advice from a returning face, Pickles the Clown.
So before we get to Pickles, I just want to say during this whole montage of people trying to teach Arthur clowning, we get this. And I'm sure we've heard this song before, but it really dawned on me this time, this amazing synth pan flute track where it's like playing pan flute samples on a synth. And all I could think of this whole time, I was actually laughing during this whole montage because all I could think of is that one Giant Bomb video where they're playing that INCA game and it's like, INCA people into the night. And oh my goodness, if you could find the audio from that and just drop a little bit of that song, it's just a gift I need to share with more people.
I would be happy to.
We are the Incas, kings and knights. We're lost, where we go we don't know. We keep on flying into the night. Inca people looking for a place to go. We are the Incas, kings and knights. We're lost, where we go we don't know. We keep on flying into the night. Inca people looking for a place to go.
INCA people. And we
Pan
need
flute
more
solo.
It's true, and you know what? I couldn't be happier that the pan flute made a quick comeback. I want to say in late 2015, early 2016, in the Justin Bieber "What Did You Mean" era, and so I'm happy that we had that quick new wave of pan flute for a while. I was sad to see it go.
Thank you for reminding me of that. I can't wait to look that up when we're done here. Inca people looking for a place to go.
I'm laughing about it now. I paused the episode to go watch that video. I can't get enough of it.
Excellent. Okay, so Pickles the Clown returning here to give Arthur professional clowning lessons. But then we get the joke again of like he's allergic to Pal, and he does like the big performative clown sneeze, which is apparently
some great continuity.
Yeah,
because they don't even really say that like it was something in a previous episode. They just kind of like throw it out there like, oh yeah, Pickles is allergic to dogs.
And then Pickles eventually just gives up on him, and like he literally gets into his little clown buggy and is just like, take it from me, kid. Don't be a clown or like whatever. And then like drives away.
Well, he actually says, and this plays into the end of the episode.
Okay.
He says, "Take it from me, kid. I think long shoes or big feet and a rubber nose aren't for you. So keep that in mind. He doesn't necessarily say don't be a clown, which will come back later.
Right, and again, laying the tracks down for the final station we pull into, and then everybody's like, "Man, if the best clown in Elwood City says that you're not funny, then you really do have no hope." And Francine's like, "I knew about a kid once who had no sense of humor, and he grew up to be Mr. Ratburn." And we get a little bit of
really funny.
A transformation. Arthur quickly grows a couple feet, turns into the aardvark equivalent of Mr. Ratburn, and does a little
American Ratburn in London much.
Oh, that's the name of the episode. American Ratburn in London. Ow, Ratburns of London. Again, another. Hey, 3 great movies, kids. American Werewolf in London. Although that one's a little bit for mature audiences.
I was gonna say the tonal shift of watching Demolition Man, then Dunkirk, and then American Werewolf in London would give you cinematic whiplash to the point where your head would spin.
But that also sounds like a hell of a Saturday afternoon. Yeah, so we do get American Ratburn in London here, and Arthur's voice actor has to do his impression of Mr. Ratburn, which I thought was pretty funny. This again, Arthur being very defensive about either his perceived lack of humor. The next scene is him coming to school and just admitting okay, maybe I'm not funny. But then he goes into this amazing filibuster about
it's like Arthur's a character at a Hamilton. All it needs is people to be in "What you gonna do, Arthur?" He goes, "I don't need to be funny. I'm a rapid old-timey filibuster." That's the whole vibe I got from it, is that he's like a character from Hamilton.
And then Buster steps in the spotlight, and now I'm the damn fool that shot him.
Yeah, exactly.
No, now I'm thinking about who would be who in Hamilton. No. Oh, I can't. I got an episode to do. Yeah, so it's almost reminded me a bit of a moment from the Peanuts or something, like from the Christmas special where Linus steps into the spotlight and does his little speech about what Christmas really means. Out of nowhere, and this confused me to no end when I was a kid, there's a chorus of children humming "Glory, Glory, Hallelujah," as Arthur talks about the virtues of not being funny. And he ramps up to his final line, which is, by not being funny, okay, sorry, I should explain that, Arthur talks about how not everybody can be funny. And that means that the people who are funny are able to make, TV shows, and people are able to watch them. But if everybody was funny, then nobody would watch TV. So then the advertisers wouldn't make money, and people would go out of business. To which Arthur says, by not being funny, I'm saving the jobs of thousands of people and their families.
This has to be a reference to something that we're just not familiar with, because it's all a little too specific. Them humming "Glory, Glory," Arthur getting out his soapbox.
It might be, but I thought it was really, really off the wall, but in a way that I thought totally worked. It's so not something that Arthur the show does, but I liked it kind of going against the grain a little bit. Arthur getting very self-important and then walking away, and then Fern speaking up and going, "Wow, I hope someday I can be as important as Arthur."
Fun moment that it was Fern who pointed that out.
Yeah, and I feel like of all the people who would be touched by a speech like that, it would definitely be Fern, who's bit more of a poetic soul, can appreciate a good yarn being spun. Anyway, it gets to the day of the carnival, and Arthur's role is as the piano player, just to provide the soundtrack for everybody else's clowning. We get an aside here from Francine and Muffy. Francine says, it's he looks pretty sad. I hope you're happy. And then Muffy says, Francine, when I really think about it, I am. And I thought that was cold as ice.
We get this great reaction shot from Muffy. It hard zooms in on her face as she says, "I am."
Yeah. So Arthur starts out by playing pretty normally, and everybody's doing their clown thing. Muffy's driving a small fire truck. Brain's spinning something on a stick. and Binky and Francine are doing like physical stuff. But then Arthur kind of spots Kate in the audience and starts playing around with her. Again, like he was doing earlier, just kind of making wacky faces and like playing silly and like playing the wrong notes. Everybody starts getting a little thrown off by it, but then eventually the audience kind of comes around to it and they start to really laugh at it. And at first the kids think it's because they're doing such a good job as clowns, but then they realize that they're actually laughing at Arthur. So Muffy gets a little upset and just like, it's like, cut that out right now. And Arthur's like, oh, sorry, I was just playing with Kate. And but then once he stops, everybody takes that for him being done, and they all applaud him. And so they decide to work in Arthur's wacky piano playing with their clowning, and it ends up being a much better show all around.
Arthur's a regular Bo Burnham.
Yeah,
musical comedian exclusively.
Yeah, and it reminded me that like being able to be funny through music. I mean, like Bo Burnham is like through lyrics and stuff like that, but being able to like do comedy simply through playing an instrument can't be easy. Like doing comedy is hard. Playing an instrument is hard. Trying to be funny by playing an instrument has got to be incredibly difficult.
I don't know, Will. Just give me a slide whistle, and I'm funny all day.
Yeah, sure, but that's kind of like one or two notes that you're rocking there. Arthur's making the full keyboards like sing to his whims here. So
all I need is a slide whistle and the Price is Right fail horn. But wow.
You just need a couple.
Makes anything funny.
You just need a couple good samples, and you've got the audience in the palm of your hand.
Exactly.
So the show ends up going off very well, and we get to kind of the end of the episode and the main message here. Pickles the Clown actually comes back and congratulates Arthur. Arthur kind of didn't even realize that he was being funny. He was just doing what came naturally to him. And Pickles actually had a couple of lines here, and it was like almost like a little bit of a paragraph, but I decided to write down the part of it that I thought was the most pertinent. And he says, "Kid, everybody's got a different style. Don't be afraid to find yours." And with the message being, of course, like everybody's got a way of being funny. Everybody's got a way of doing something. And just because there's one way of doing something, such as being funny, doesn't mean that that's the only way. And I thought that was yeah.
And that's actually what Pickles was saying earlier. The kids just misinterpreted it. When he was saying that a rubber nose and big feet weren't for Arthur, he wasn't telling Arthur to give up being a clown. He was telling Arthur to stop trying to be like Pickles and find his own way.
Exactly. And yeah, that's how they find out that Arthur is funny, just in a certain way. And then the letter to Buster ends, and there's a picture of all of them with Pickles, and
we cut back to Buster briefly at the on the set of The Dark Knight Rises, yet again in front of some sort of European coffee establishment.
Yeah, with his dad's head again buried in the Parisian Times or whatever it is, and just reading it and laughing to himself as the episode ends. And there it is, Arthur the Unfunny. All right, let's rewind it back to Water and the Brain. I'm very interested to talk to you about what you thought of this episode. So what did you think?
Weird episode, very up and down. Like, I feel like that whole episode is building to a resolution with Brain's character that it never really reaches. Like, and I think it's because it was trying to have its cake and eat it too. I really think this episode wanted to have... It's really the story of 3 episodes, right? At the start, it's an episode of everybody giving Brain the silent treatment. And then it's basically a series of montages of Arthur and Binky trying to get Brain to face his fears. And then in the end, it ends up being about how it's okay to be different and you should just accept people for being different. But I feel like if that's the moral they were working towards, they should have went about it a different way, because it kind of feels detached. Instead of feeling like one cohesive story, it feels like 3 separate episodes all kind of about the brain. And then, of course, this is all exacerbated by that insane opening, which barely has anything to do with the rest of the episode.
I will get the things I liked about the episode out of the way. I thought, like you mentioned before, Binky was once again the MVP of his episode. He really is almost becoming the MVP of the show. He was very funny, and in fact, the moments that he did have kind of played into his character very well. And a couple of the asides were funny enough. I didn't like this episode. I felt that it really kind of came together in a way that didn't make a lot of sense. Like from the weird cold opening that really raised more questions than it answered and was kind of distracting from the episode at points, to just the way that like Brain's character progressed throughout the episode, the way that we got to the conclusions that we got to, none of it seemed very natural. And, you know, compared to other Arthur episodes where it's like you've got kind of one straight line, this one, like you said, of kind of like three different stories in one, it seemed like they were trying to all cram it together and make sense, and it sometimes didn't. And I felt like the flow of it was very choppy. And
why would the towels have been wet if Brain wasn't there? It doesn't make any sense. They're just sitting on the beach chair. Why would they have been wet?
And that's the thing. Like, by the end of the episode, we're just like, oh, we didn't have to make an issue of this at all. Brain could have just not swam, or like, if this were handled in any other way, this wouldn't have been an episode. So I don't know. I just didn't feel like this had a whole great, like, very good reason to exist. It felt like we wanted to make a Brain episode, but we really couldn't think of what to do with him. Maybe because he's not that interesting of a character, but I don't know. I
think the episode would have worked better if, when in the final moments of Brain going into the aquarium, and he's really, and this is what I thought was going to happen, when he's backing up, talking about how you could be afraid of school, if he had actually fallen into the fountain, and then gotten out and sort of faced his fear and then had a moment to grow, that would be, I don't know, a conclusion that, it's not a great conclusion, but at least it makes a little bit more sense with the rest of the episode. The moral they end up giving is that, I guess, the Brain's friends were the ones that grew by accepting what makes him different, but I just don't think they earned that.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a good point, too. So, yeah, this is definitely not a favorite episode of mine. In fact, I don't think I liked it almost hardly at all, save for a couple things in it. Arthur the Unfunny was another one. Hey, go figure. I related to an episode that was about Arthur. I'm starting to run into a theme here. I thought this one was good. I don't think it was terrific necessarily, but there were some good things going for it. I thought that it was, well, funny in places. In fact, I liked a lot of the way that it approached one of the themes of just like, you know, not everybody is funny, but everybody has their own way of doing something. And I kind of appreciated, it's kind of a, something that grows on you a little bit. It's, we've had episodes where the theme is kind of explicitly for little kids, whereas this one is kind of like, well, not everybody can be funny, and that's okay, which is something I kind of struggle with to this day. I don't think I'm terribly funny, except in the social sense that Arthur is. And then the message at the end of just like, well, just because you're not funny in one way doesn't mean that you're like not funny full stop 100%. And you just got to find your own way of being funny or just doing something that you like, that makes you happy. And I thought that it was a very nuanced way to deal with it.
Yeah, I think it's not like standout or anything, but it's a rock solid Arthur episode, especially concerning that basically Arthur carries the whole thing. You know me, I tend to enjoy Buster episodes. I tend to enjoy the ensemble episodes. Those are the characters I gravitate towards more, but I was really impressed how this episode has Arthur really carry the whole thing. It's about his growth, and he's the central character, and I think it does it really well. Arthur's not annoying. All of his motivations make perfect sense. Like, he's not worrying about something that he shouldn't worry about. He's dealing with something a lot of us deal with, where, oh, am I not as good at this thing? Do I have to try and be like everybody else at this thing? So I think in that way, it succeeds. So sure, it's not standout or super memorable. It's a little slowly paced, especially when Pickles starts monologuing at the end. But I do think it's well executed. And for a show called Arthur, we could use a few more episodes like this where Arthur really carries it.
And I mentioned earlier, I think that both of these episodes really have a similar theme of just like accepting what it is that makes somebody different, or like that sort of thing. And I really feel like Arthur the Unfunny really communicated it a lot better than Water and the Brain did. And it's no secret at all which one of these two that I really much prefer.
I'll also say that I really dug the framing device of Arthur writing a note to Buster. I hope that comes back for a few more episodes. It's just a vibe I enjoy.
Yeah, I agree. And we'll have, and again, I hope that as well. It'd be nice if we kind of got to play with the way an Arthur story is told. Okay, that is it. Water in the Brain and Arthur the Unfunny. Hey, thanks for joining us for another look at the classic PBS Kids show. If you'd like to get in contact with us, we would love to hear from you. Here are the ways you can do that over on social media. Facebook.com/Elwood City Limits. Over on Twitter at ECL Podcasts. Tumblr, thank you for the asks, Norbert Jr. and Anonymous. If you'd like to keep your questions anonymous, elwoodcitylimits.tumblr.com. Or if you don't mind, throwing us a line, dropping us a line. That's it. If you don't mind dropping us a line, elwoodcitylimits@gmail.com. Whatever is on your mind, regards to Arthur, this podcast, and beyond, we would love to hear it. Finally, the ways that you can listen to us, we are on Apple Music. You can search us up over there. If you could please give us a rating and review, we really appreciate it, especially if that review is 5 stars. You can also find us over on our website where all of our episodes are archived, elwoodcitylimits.libsyn.com, Libsyn spelled Libsyn. And we are also on Google Play Music. And if there's
Not to be confused with Libsyn, the most satanic podcast hosting hub on the web.
Ooh. And yeah, we Google Play. You can check us out over there. If there's another service that you would like us to be a part of, please let us know that too. Lucas, next week we've got us a big one. Not just in terms of the episode that we're dealing with, but next week, it's been a while since we've had a 3-person show, but that's all going to change.
Wow.
Yes, we have a special guest coming up next week. I don't want to let you know who it is just yet. You're going to have to keep it locked on Elwood City Limits, but I will say this particular guest was requested heavily recently during our uptick in Twitter followers. So check out our mentions and make sure you're here next week because Lucas, myself, and our special guest will be talking about Sue Ellen's Lost Diary and Arthur's knee. And that's what you can expect, a special guest and more Arthur shenanigans next week. As we begin September, we wish you all the best with your school year. Oh, and by the way, apologies for throwing this in at the end, but for anybody who has any family or friends that have been affected by Hurricane Harvey in the Texas area over the last week, we wish you all the best as well, to you and anyone else you know who has been affected, especially for our American listeners. All the best. We hope you get through this difficult time safely and on the other side. All right, that is another episode of ECL in the books. Lucas, anything else?
He doesn't hate girls. He hates all of us.
That's Lucas Mancini. I'm Will Young. We'll catch you next week with a special guest.